What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. Today, we are looking at the top undervalued Silver Age keys to invest in. We have 5 books on the list today, folks, and that word right there, undervalued. Most of you, if you watch my channel, know that I do not use that word lightly. I'm going to define it for you when we get into these books, but before we do so, if you are subscribed to the channel, please take some time to do so, and I'm going to take just 1 minute to give a big shout out and thank you to today's sponsor, PopCultureZone.com. PopCultureZone.com is an online shop focusing on hot new comics, including exclusive and incentive variants, CGC graded comics, and tons of other inventory, including pop culture toys and other collectibles, all at low and competitive prices. PopCultureZone.com ships all over the US for a flat rate charge of only $4.99. That's right, $4.99, and there's no taxes included, excluding New Jersey. Pop Culture Zone is also on eBay, where they hold a 100% positive feedback rating with over 8,000 completed transactions for this year alone. Make sure to check out the link to their website below, as well as their eBay link, so be sure to give them a follow there as well. All right, folks, top undervalued Silver Age keys. So to me, what does undervalued mean? I think it's thrown around in this community and in this hobby way too much. Undervalued, when you think about investment and finance terms, it's when something has an intrinsic value that is not yet realized. Intrinsic mean it's a value that's inherently there within, in this case, the comic book. So we're not looking at extrinsic factors. So sometimes when we think about movie spec and speculation like that, those tend to be extrinsic factors. These are books that I believe already have something there that can continue to push the value of these books up over time for that long term. But with that being said, let's get into book number 5. We have Fantastic Four 53. This is the origin and the second appearance of Black Panther, and also the first appearance of Ulysses Claw. This is a pretty loaded book here. A lot of people will tell you that even right now, with Fantastic Four 52, the first appearance of Black Panther, ever since Chadwick Boseman took the mantle and we saw him in the MCU, that book has skyrocketed. People will still tell you that that's one of the most undervalued books in comic book history. Well, this one right here, I believe, is truly undervalued. It is one of those second best, because it's a second appearance of Black Panther, but it also has the origin of Black Panther, and I think that means a lot. Let's look at these numbers, and I'll give a little more context to why I put this book on this list. Current CGC 9.0 fair market value, about $530. And again, keep in mind, fair market values are always a rough estimate, a rolling average that can change day to day, week to week. All right, 5 years ago, that 9.0 CGC was sitting at about $419. That's a 5-year increase of 27%. Average raw sitting at about $111. And like I always say, average raw doesn't pertain to a grade. It's all of your raw sales added up, the price of all those sales divided by how many books sold. There's your average. So you could probably find some grade of this book raw around that average mark. So again, we look at the word undervalued. We already had Black Panther show up in the MCU. I know it's still devastating knowing what happened with Chadwick Boseman, and that we don't know if we're going to see T'Challa. Of course, we're going to see the mantle be carried on. But here's the thing. When it comes to this character, this is what I'm talking about, intrinsic value. I think origin stories have been generally undervalued for a long time. And I think in this day and age of instantaneous information, when we have the internet, social media, databases, and apps like Key Collector, where we're informed, we know all of the first appearances, all of the team-ups, all of the origins. These things are becoming more sought after, and that's why I feel this book is inherently undervalued. So I definitely look for this book to continue to increase, as it has done over the last 5 years. All right, folks, let's go into book number 4. We have DC represent Justice League of America 21. This is the first Silver Age appearance of Justice Society of America. Dr. Fate, let's look at these numbers and then I'll add some context. Current CGC 8.0 fair market value, sitting at about $900. 5 years ago, sitting at about $400. More than double. That's a 125% increase. Average Ross sitting at about $71. I say it again. DC has key books that don't need an MCU, so to say, push them and continue to increase. I mean, you've seen what this book is already doing, but I put this on the undervalued list because, again, as we get older, and farther away from when these books were released, you look at a Golden Age team like Justice Society of America and all these Golden Age characters. Their first appearances in the Golden Age and all those Golden Age books are becoming more and more sought after. Prices continue to go up. So again, this is another next best thing. So I think the inherent value of these characters, the first time they show up in the Silver Age, is a very valuable thing to collectors that want to go after these types of either one, characters, and two, appearances. So you're really meshing that Silver Age with Golden Age in a book like this. And I think, again, I don't even have to speak on what it's done over the last 5 years. I do believe it's going to continue to do that. And I'll say right now, as you guys are going to see, because as we get lower in this list, these increases in value are going to keep getting higher and higher. Just because a book continues to increase in value doesn't mean that it's not undervalued still, right? Again, how we use that term can be a bit subjective here, but let's go into book number 3. We have Amazing Spider-Man 51, second appearance of Kingpin, but his first cover appearance. I've talked about this book in a couple of lists over the last couple of years, most likely. I can't really undervalue, in my humble opinion. Let's look at these numbers. I'll give context. Current CGC 8.5 fair market value, $434 roughly. 5 years ago, $161. That's a 5-year increase of 170%. Solid movement. Average raw sitting at about $154. All right. Again, another book that was flying under the radar for so long. We know that ASM 50 is an iconic book. What's really interesting about ASM 50 is that it has such an iconic cover and story arc already outside of it being Kingpin's first appearance. So I think that right there established that book on so many different fronts to where that's why this book got really kind of pushed to the sidelines. I mean, I purchased this book a few years ago in the mid-grade for maybe not even $30. And it goes to show you with the average raw sitting at about 154, you're probably looking at some type of mid-grade book there. So it shows you what this book has done. We know that Kingpin in general has been hot right now. A lot of speculation with him showing up in the MCU again, like in the films. Is he going to show up in the next Spider-Man movie and so forth? With Daredevil, who knows? So a lot of that could be seen as extrinsic value, but inherently, the Kingpin is one of those villains. They say don't invest in villains. He's one of those villains that's just so iconic that his first appearances in key books, I believe, are solid investments for that long term. Could this book be increasing right now because of speculation as well? Sure, but I think when you get an iconic performance in live action, whether it be TV or in film, and you get fans or the new generation or even older generations that may be not familiar with the character and they dive into the character and then they go back to the comic books searching for their key appearances, you can build that intrinsic value within these books as well, because these collectors are genuinely caring about the character himself or herself. So I look for big things on the horizon for all of Kingpin keys, even if we don't see him in the MCU, which I think is going to happen. And if we do, things are going to go crazy, in my humble opinion. All right, we got 2 more books, folks. Let's go to book number 2. Strange Tales 158, first full appearance of the Living Tribunal. Living Tribunal does have a final page, panel in 157, cameo. This is the first full. I don't want to say hyping this book up, but I've just been true to my word that I believe this book has been so undervalued and underlooked at. Let's look at the numbers. Current CGC 9.2 fair market value, $900. Roughly. 5 years ago, $102. That is a 782% increase, with an average raw still sitting at about $85. Okay, guys, folks. How is a book with a 782% increase undervalued? Well, I looked at some of the other grades, and as you get down lower, the percentage is a bit lower, but it's still booming, folks, okay? And it's a Silver Age book, and a 9.2 is still a high grade, right? But I just, again, undervalued, using that word. I don't think a lot of more casual collectors really were familiar with the Living Tribunal. I think Strange Tales is a Silver Age run was highly undervalued. I think it was seen as a second tier run. Well, Doctor Strange in this day and age has really planted his feet in, the modern Marvel culture. And again, you can look at the MCU for helping that out and what Cumberbatch has done with the character. But you've taken a lot of these characters and a lot of eyes are turning to them now. And again, it's not just like this speculative, oh, they're going to show up in a film. It's people are seeing these characters show up in the films and they're actually falling in love with them and they're caring about them. And I think this is one that is going to show up in the MCU at some point. But again, look for, there's a lot of great, whether it's the mysticism or the cosmic element in Strange Tales. Eternity, Living Tribunal, there's so much there that I think is going to pan out in the MCU. But I think a lot of collectors, especially probably like me, who are a bit older and been collecting for a long time, that are interested in Silver Age books, we're looking at things that are more affordable than your Amazing Spider-Man run, where even odd issues, common issues, are going crazy on the market. Your Fantastic Four, Silver Age, they're going crazy on the market, even if they're not huge keys. You look to a run like Strange Tales, and you find these for more affordable prices. I do believe this book has so much room to grow. With that said, we only have one more book, folks. But before we get into the number one book, I want to remind everyone that you could save 10% off of your comic book supplies from BCW if you use the code JOURNOS. That link to their website is below, folks. You can use the code as many times as you want. It never expires. Click the link. Check out all BCW's comic book supplies. I literally stand by their products, folks. I buy almost all of my comic book supplies from them, at least for bags and boards. So, guys, check that out. Save 10%. But now, let's get into the number one book, and it is Fantastic 449. I know you guys probably think I'm crazy. Journo has flipped his wig. How the heck is this book undervalued? The first full appearance of Galactus, second appearance of Silver Surfer, and the first cover appearance of both Galactus and Silver Surfer. Okay, let's look at the numbers, and I'm gonna plead my case with you all, okay? Current CGC 7.5 fair market value, $3,716. 5 years ago, a whopping $245. That is a 1,417% increase, with an average raw sitting at $598. You guys are probably like, this guy has lost his mind. Here's the thing, folks. You have another book that's sitting right in front of this one with Fantastic 448. It's still an iconic Kirby cover, and it says Coming of Galactus on it. And I never believe that 49 is ever going to be more valuable than 48. But if you guys have seen the trend, as 48 has risen, so has 49, right? But here's the thing. Although 48 will always be the number one when speaking of these two, I think people tend to forget. Look on screen. What does this book have in it that is intrinsically valuable? It's the first full appearance of Galactus. So we saw him in 48 in a cameo. It's the second appearance of Silver Surfer. So we saw Silver Surfer in full in 48. But what sticks out to me, folks, it is the first cover appearance of both of those characters. That right there is huge, and that's why I believe it's even today is a tad bit undervalued, even with the boom that we've seen. But when we're riding a fine line here when we're talking about undervalued. But because let me explain myself. The reason why this book has boomed so much as it has is because it's been so undervalued for so long. So I put this book as number one just to show you folks how books can be undervalued. And I still think it has a lot of legroom to grow. But, it being undervalued is we're almost at a point where that's behind us. People are recognizing that this book packs a power punch, right? Alongside 48. And that's why 50 has gone up as well because of that trilogy in 48, 49, and 50. But there's so much here, folks. And, not trying to focus too much on movie hype in this video, but I do believe it is inevitable that we're going to see both of these characters. And when that happens, boy, oh boy, all of this is happening without any type of announcement, any type of casting, trailers, or real, rumors even at this point that these characters are going to show up. So, all right, folks, those are my 5 Silver Age undervalued key comics to invest in. As always, I'm not here to tell you folks what to buy or to buy any books just because I talk about them. I'm here to provide some facts with some data and drop a little bit of my own opinion in there with it. So if there's no love in the comic books, if you're not willing to take the risks, folks, maybe it's not for you. Be smart buyers. Make sure you're patient with your decisions and make sure that whatever decisions you make, you can live with it and you can be happy collecting in the hobby that we love. So with that being said, I want to hear your thoughts below. How many books do you have out of these 5? And let me know if there's any other books that you thought should have been on this list as well. And before we go, I do have to give a big shout out to all of my channel members, starting out with my Patreon members. Thank you all so much for the continued support. Justin, Kenwick, Jordan, Reaper's Comic Den, X11 Bravo, Shelby, Kenneth, Rich, Tony T, Marty, Larry, Michelle, Tyler, Keith, Jeremy, Michael, Jeff, Tricky Clicky, Alvin, Fletch Comics, Pedro, Peter, Joe G, Larissa, Sagi, Dan, and Simon. And to all of my YouTube channel members, thank you again so much for your continued support. And if you guys are interested in becoming a member of the channel, either via Patreon or by YouTube, you can click the join button below or check out my Patreon link in the description below as well. And again, big shout out to today's sponsor, popculturezone.com. Don't forget to check them out, folks. Thank you all for watching. Be well, and until next time.